Hello. Today, Kuukuwa Manful is going to talk to us about her new article just published in African Affairs. It's called Research with African Adolescents, Critical Epistemologies and Methodological Considerations. Kuukuwa, congratulations on the article.
Thank you.
Perhaps you could start by telling us a bit about why you were working in a rural school in Ghana, or a school in rural Ghana in the first place.
My dissertation is on the architecture of education in Ghana, and even though I'm taking a longue durée historical view, one part of it is looking at students who are currently in school. And I also believe that it's important to talk to young people about their views and about their knowledge on the country, not just about being young, but about being citizens in Ghana. So young people were one of my groups of informants and participants, and thus going to a school in Ghana was part of my research design. Okay. That's how I ended up there.
So it was part of your bigger project, which is about citizenship and the making of citizenship.
Exactly.
What was particularly interesting about the article is your really innovative methodological approach. So could you tell us a bit about the AIR Club?
Once I decided that I was going to include students in this research and I needed to engage with them in some way, there were a number of options open to me just based on reading around about different methods. And so there was a possibility of going to interact with the students in class, in a kind of classroom setting. Also, I should mention that I was thinking of an approach which also gave and just did not extract. So in this given, one of the ideas was to teach a class, which some other researchers have done. But I thought that might be more disruptive than helpful, because I would only be there for 2 months, 3 months at most. And again, based on my own experience of being a secondary school student in Ghana, I know what it means to just have a teacher come for 3 months and just leave. So I was thinking of other ways where I could, give as much as, or give something rather than just take, and thinking of a way where I could kind of respect the autonomy and personhood of the people that I was going to be interacting with. I came up with this idea of a club. So the club would be after school, so it would not be in a period where they were required to be somewhere. So they could choose to attend or choose not to attend. And then in the club, I would teach things, but these were not things that were part of their regular curriculum. They were things that were useful. So based on the courses that are done in the school, there are people who do technical drawing, there are people who do general arts and general science. So history, architectural drawing, videography, photography are like skills, general skills that are not available in school, but then are useful for students to have. So these were things I kind of designed as part of the club. And then created this space where people could opt in and opt out of the study, because they could decide not to come to a second meeting if they didn't like it. So it was just all around these issues of consent and autonomy and kind of respecting the young participants as people in their own rights.
One of the most important parts of the article, it seems to me, was about this question of consent and how you sustain consent. And you come up with this term, enthusiastic participation. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Enthusiastic participation, and I kind of created that term and after the very helpful feedback from the reviewers. So I had a different, more clunky term in the beginning. I forget it now because it was not that good. But what I was trying to get at was participation that was the students saying, I want to be here, rather than I don't mind being here, or I've been asked to be here, or I don't have a problem with being here, which I think is really important in the context of this study that I was doing. Because again, like in doing this work, I told you I was having a lot of recurring nightmares about being back in secondary school, and all these subtle pressures where you do a thing you don't really want to do because you want to please your teacher. So it's not malicious, it's not bad, it's not the teachers forcing students to do what they don't want to do, but it's the students being worried about disappointing their students or feeling like they have to do something. So I was trying to eliminate that as much as possible and create this space with activities that some of them might be interested in and would kind of draw them there, and then they would enthusiastically participate and want to be there and want to keep coming to meetings rather than feeling obliged to come because of their teachers or other authority figures or even me.
You have a very strong line in the article also that a lot of research doesn't take adolescents' views very seriously, and that they ought to be taken seriously. Why do you make that argument? And perhaps tell us a bit about what they did reveal to you as part of your research.
So that argument also comes about by just discussing this work and my intentions for field work with colleagues and mentors and supervisors and the like. So when I said I was going to be including young people, students in this research, people would ask, oh, so you're doing a youth studies thing? But I wasn't, or I didn't think I was doing a youth studies thing. They were just one group of people that I was going to be interviewing. So in talking more about it and reading other papers and trying to figure out these different disciplines and subjects, I realized that in kind of like youth are usually kind of pigeonholed into youth studies discipline. And when you read general political studies, they rarely have anybody below the age of 18 that's included as an interlocutor in the subject. So this is why I made this argument as well, this research note, that young people should not be just pigeonholed as youth studies. They are a very important part of especially Africa, where over 80% of the population is below the age of 18. So if we're going to be making these studies and making these claims about the continent, it doesn't make sense that we're using the perspectives and opinions of a small population to generalize for the whole continent. So this is why I make this claim. And during my fieldwork, one really interesting way that I think this came out was when I was looking for the location of the first building to be constructed on campus. I asked elders of the community, over 90-year-olds. They didn't know, like they knew that a building had been constructed, but where was it? It had long been demolished, I should mention. I asked the staff. Nobody I asked could remember where it had been. Even some alumni couldn't remember. Some older alumni couldn't remember. But like the young students, the below 18-year-olds knew exactly where it was because they had this portion of their school which they kind of called a cemetery, even though it wasn't really a cemetery because they had some forget-me-not trees there, and they associate that with cemeteries, they told me. And they took me there, and you could see some ridges and stuff, and they said this was where the first building was. And they knew it because they had been told by students that came before them. And what I realized was it had been transmitted over years. So this is like a kind of historical thing that you wouldn't expect children to know, because you would think the oldest people in the community would know. But then, yeah, these adolescents knew it. So this is an example of adolescents just having knowledge of their own, which is not necessarily about being young or youth studies.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. So it's the kind of generations keep and pass down this without any adult input or knowledge. Yes. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah. So perhaps just finally, I mean, this is part of your thesis and hopefully book. Could you? I mean, so you went to all these great lengths at building this club and creating this informed, enthusiastic participation, and what do you think this added to your understanding of citizenship in Ghana?
What I found, and this I found much later when I was analysing and writing up, was that or let's say two things. The first one I found when I was analysing much later was the almost unguarded for want of a better word, unguarded nature of the way that the current students spoke about certain things. So I realized, again, in going through the different sets of interviews, like I said, I interviewed a lot of people. Like my oldest informant was over 90 years old, and then my youngest, 14 years old. So the older alumni of secondary schools, when we're talking about issues like class and feelings of belonging in the nation, would be euphemistic about certain things, or maybe had suppressed certain memories and certain ideas, just because, again, as you grow older, you learn to associate shame with certain issues because you internalize it and think it's your fault. Whereas when you are younger, maybe you don't have these things yet, or you haven't realized you have to be ashamed of certain things yet. So my adolescents were very open about talking about certain things and how they made them feel, and the unfairness of certain things in ways that my older interlocutors were not comfortable or did not even realize they were doing. Another thing that helped me was that then when I did follow-up interviews, because I had seen how my younger interviewees responded to certain issues, it helped me also rephrase how I asked certain questions to the next set of older people I interviewed to elicit different responses. So yeah, that's just an example.
Absolutely key to the project.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.